والنقما، وأعظم المتجبرين في موضع الكبرياء والعظمة. اللهم أذنت لي في دعائك ومسألتك، فاسمع يا سميع مدحتي، وأجب يا رحيم دعوتي، وأقل يا غفور عثرتي. فكم يا إلهي من كربة قد فرجتها، وهموم قد كشفتها، وأثرة قد أقلتها، ورحمة قد نشرتها، وحلقة بلاء قد فككتها. الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا، ولم يكن له شريك في الملك، ولم يكن له ولي من الذل، وكبره تكبيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الحمد لله بجميع محامده كلها، على جميع نعمه كلها. الحمد لله الذي لا مضاد له في ملكه ولا منازع له في أمره. الحمد لله الذي لا شريك له في خلقه ولا شبيه له في عظمته. الحمد لله الفاش في الخلق أمره وحمده، الظاهر بالكرم مجده، الباسط بالجود يدا، الذي لا تنقص خزائنه ولا تزيده كثرة العطاء إلا جودا وكرما، إنه هو العزيز الوهاب. اللهم إني أسألك قليلا من كثير، مع حاجة بي إليه عظيما، وغناك عنه قديم، وهو عندي كثير، وهو عليك سهل يسير. اللهم إن عفوك عن ذنبي، وتجاوزك عن خطيئتي، وسفحك عن ظلمي، وسترك على قبيح عملي، وحلمك عن كثير جرمي، عندما كان من خطئي وعمدي أطمعني في أن أسألك ما لا أستوجبه منك، الذي رزقتني من رحمتك، وأريتني من قدرتك، وعرفتني من إجابتك. فصرت أدعوك آمنا، وأسأله مستأنسا، لا خائفا ولا وجلا، مدلا عليك فيما قصدت فيه إليك. فإن أبطأ عني عتبت بجهلي عليك، ولعل الذي يبطأ عني هو خير لي، لعلمك بعاقبة الأمور. فلم أر مولا كريما أصبر على عبد لئيم منك علي يا رب. إنك تدعوني فأولي عنك، وتتحبب إلي فأتبغض إليك، وتتودد إلي فلا أقبل منك، كأن لي التطول عليك. فلم يمنعك ذلك من الرحمة لي والإحسان إلي، والتفضل علي بجودك وكرمك. فارحم عبدك الجاهل، وجد عليه بفضل إحسانك، إنك جواد كريم. الحمد لله مالك الملك، مجري الفلك، مسخر الرياح، فالق الإصباح، ديان الدين، رب العالمين. الحمد لله على حلمه بعد علمه، والحمد لله على عفوه بعد قدرته، والحمد لله على طول أناته في غضبه، وهو قادر على ما يريد. الحمد لله خالق الخلق، باسط الرزق، فالق الإصباح، ذي الجلال والإكرام والفضل والإنعام، الذي بعد فلا يرى، وقرب فشهد النجوى، تبارك وتعالى. الحمد لله الذي ليس له منازع يعادل، ولا شبيه يشاكل، ولا ظهير يعاضد. قهر بعزته الأعزاء وتواضع لعظمته العظماء فبلغ بقدرته ما يشاء. الحمد لله الذي يجيبني حين أنادي ويستر علي كل عورة وأنا أعصي ويعظم النعمة علي فلا أجازي. فكم من موهبة هنيئة قد أعطاني وعظيمة مخوفة قد كفاني وبهجة مونقة قد أراني فأثني عليه حامدا واذكره مسبحا. الحمد لله الذي لا يهتك حجابه ولا يغلق بابه ولا يرد السائل ولا يخيب آمل. الحمد لله الذي يؤمن الخائفين وينجي الصالحين ويرفع المستضعفين ويضع المستكبرين ويهلك ملوكا ويستخلف آخرين. والحمد لله قاسم الجبارين مبير الظالمين مدرك الهاربين نكال الظالمين صريخ المستصرخين موضع حاجات الطالبين معتمد المؤمنين. الحمد لله الذي من خشيته وترعد السماء وسكانها وترجف الأرض وعمارها وتموج البحار ومن يسبح في غمراتها. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. الحمد لله الذي يخلق ولم يخلق ويرزق ولا يرزق ويطعم ولا يطعم ويميت الأحياء ويحيي الموتى وهو حي لا يموت بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير. اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وأمينك وسفيك وحبيبك وخيرتك من خلقك وحافظ سرك ومبلغ رسالاتك أفضل وأحسن وأجمل وأكمل وأزكى وأنمى وأطيب وأطهر وأسنى وأكثر ما صليت وباركت وترحمت وتحننت وسلمت على أحد من عبادك وأنبيائك ورسلك وصفوتك وأهل الكرامة عليك من خلقك. اللهم وصل على علي أمير المؤمنين ووصي رسول رب العالمين عبدك ووليك وأخي رسولك وهجتك على خلقك وآيتك الكبرى والنبأ العظيم. وصل على الصديقة الطاهرة فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. وصل على سبط الرحمة وإمام الهدى الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة. وصل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الهادي المهدي حججك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك صلاة كثيرة دائمة. اللهم وصل على ولي أمرك القائم المؤمل والعدل المنتظر وحفه بملائكتك المقربين وأيده بروح القدس يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعله الداعي إلى كتابك والقائم بدينك استخلفوا في الأرض كما استخلفت الذين من قبله مكن له دينه الذي ارتضيته له. أبدله من بعد خوفه أمنا يعبدك لا يشرك بك شيئا. اللهم أعزه وأعزز به، وانصره وانتصر به، وانصره نصرا عزيزا، وافتح له فتحا يسيرا، واجعل له من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا. اللهم أظهر به دينك وسنة نبيك حتى لا يستخفي بشيء من الحق مخافة أحد من الخلق. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك في دولة كريمة تعز بها الإسلام وأهله، وتذل بها النفاق وأهله، وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك والقادة إلى سبيلك، وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم ما عرفتنا من الحق فحملنا، وما قصرنا عنه فبلغنا. اللهم المم به شأثنا، واشأب به صدعنا، وارتق به فتقنا، وكثر به قلتنا، وأعزز به ذلتنا، وأغن به عائلنا، واقض به عن مغرمنا، واجبر به فقرنا، وسد به خلتنا، ويسر به عسرنا، وبيض به وجوهنا، وفك به أسرنا، وأنجح به طلبتنا، وأنجز به مواعيدنا، واستجب به دعوتنا، وأعطنا به سؤلنا، وبلغنا به من الدنيا والآخرة آمالنا، وأعتنا به فوق رغبتنا، يا خير المسؤولين وأوسع المعتين. اشفي به صدورنا، وأذهب به غيظ قلوبنا، واهدنا به لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك، إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. وانصرنا به على عدوك وعدونا إله الحق، آمين. اللهم إنا نشكو إليك فقد نبينا صلواتك عليه وآله، وغيبة ولينا، وكثرة عدونا، وقلة عددنا، وشدة الفتن بنا، وتظاهر الزمان علينا. فصل على محمد وآله، وأعنا على ذلك بفتح منك تعجل، وبضر تكشف، ونصر تعز، وسلطان حق تظهر، ورحمة منك تجلي.
So before I invite Brother Raza Rizvi to recite souls, tonight's majlis is for Isal Sawab of Taj Begum bint Sayyid Fazal Hussain Rizvi. Let's recite Surah Fatiha.
गम का इलाज इसके सिवा और कुछ नहीं। खाके शिफा है मेरी दवा, और कुछ नहीं। पाएगा हर मरीज शिफा, शर्त है मगर मिल जाए बस अलम की हवा, और कुछ नहीं। और मैं बच गया फिशारे लहद से, इसीलिए ज़ेरे कफन थी खाके शिफा, और कुछ नहीं। घटती नहीं है आँखों की बीनाई, इसीलिए पेशे नजर है करबो बला, और कुछ नहीं। हुर ने निकल के नर गए आदा से ये कहा, अब मैं हूँ और राहे वफा, और कुछ नहीं। या रब अली वली की ज़ियारत नसीब हो, लब पर मेरे रहे ये दुआ, और कुछ नहीं। पूछा कभी सफर में हुआ क्या, बताइए कहने लगे जफा पे जफा, और कुछ नहीं, गम का इलाज इसके सिवा और कुछ नहीं। पर मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु।
Thank you, brother. Let's recite loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And I would like to request Sheikh Salim Yusuf Ali to give us his speech. Again, recite loud salawat for Sheikh. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Jal farajan.
Thank you. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وخاتم النبيين وسيد المرسلين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. For the benefit of all the marhumin and marhumat, especially the marhumin of those who are gathered here in this program, and especially marhuma Taj Banu, let's gift them with the recitation of the Surah Al-Fatiha, please. Respected elders, brothers and sisters, Alhamdulillah, we've gathered here on the 13th day of the most blessed month of the year to come together as a community, and inshallah, as the blessed day of Friday comes to end, we can inshallah take these moments to be in the state of remembrance of Allah and gain some knowledge and remind ourselves of the important duties that we have to Allah Ta'ala. Alhamdulillah, it's a blessing to be amongst you. May Allah bless you all, and may He bless this center and all those who are working hard, volunteering. May Allah Ta'ala bless Sayyid Hadi Yassin for all of his efforts and grant him tawfiq and continued opportunities. Given that tonight is the 14th night and tomorrow is the 15th night of the month of Ramadan, I wanted to focus my speech this evening and tomorrow evening on the topic of Islamic dignity or karama. And the reason why I chose that topic is because, inshallah, tomorrow night we will be celebrating the birthday of the Imam who is famously known as Al-Karim, the one who is noble and dignified and honorable and generous. And you can see that I use 4 words to translate one title of Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam, because the word because the topic of karama is something which is very much an Islamic concept that doesn't translate easily into just one English word like dignity or like nobility. It's something which goes beyond these words. But what I thought we could do on this occasion is see if we can understand more about this quality of the Imam alayhi salam. What does it mean for him to have it? And how is it that we could strive to have it? And how important of a characteristic and a value it is. Again, the topic is about karama, the Islamic dignity. I want to begin with a story from the life of Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam. It's a very short hadith which is mentioned that I'm sure brothers and sisters have heard before, but sometimes it's good for us to ponder a little bit more and see what is the secret behind these stories. Why have, of all the different incidents that took place in the lives of the Imams, why is it that this particular incident has come to us? So here, the hadith is as following: وَقِيلَ لَهُ عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامُ فِيكَ عَظَمَةٌ. It was said to Imam Hassan alayhi salam that within you there is greatness. You are a very great person. Now, in our use of the word greatness, there's no doubt that Imam Hassan alayhi salam was great. He was great beyond great. Imam Hassan alayhi salam was among the greatest that one could fathom and even beyond. Imam Hassan alayhi salam was the grandson of the Prophet. He was the Sibt. He was Al-Mujtaba, the chosen one. He was the one who, when Imam Hussein alayhi salam was with Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein would not dare to say a word out of the greatness and out of the magnificence of Imam Hassan alayhi salam. Just as an example. And we know maybe something we've heard about the greatness of Imam Hussein. Imam Hassan alayhi salam was great. When this person comes to the Imam and he says, Fika azama, that within you I sense greatness, one thing it tells us is that the Imam alayhi salam was somebody who, wherever he would go, whatever he would say, he was somebody who reflected great qualities. And this was the case with all the Imams alayhi salam. But maybe for Imam Hassan alayhi salam, we know that this is one of those characteristics that really was shining about him, that he was known for being this magnanimous and very great person. But when he comes to the Imam, this man comes to the Imam and he tells him that, I think that there's greatness found in you, the Imam alayhi salam wants to correct him. He wants to raise his level of knowledge. He wants to teach him. And that's the role of the Imams alayhi salam. So what does he says? He says, La, no, you don't have it right. Let me correct your understanding of this. He says, Bal fiya izzatun. What I have is something called izzah. And I want to translate that as Islamic dignity. And then he goes on to quote the ayah of the Quran, وَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةُ وَلِرَسُولِهِ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. There is a quality, there are some qualities which belong solely to Allah. Allah is Ahlul Kibriyai wal Azama. We say it on the day of Eid. Allah is the one who possesses Kibriya and Azama. He's the one who has all grandeur, all grandness, and all greatness. It belongs solely to Him. But there are some qualities of Allah that He shares with His creatures. They can earn them from Him. They become mirrors in reflecting those qualities. For example, Rahim, we know that Allah Ta'ala is Ar-Rahim, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And we know that in the Quran, Allah refers to our Prophet, لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولًا مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ عَزِيزٌ عَلَيْهِ مَا عَنِتُمْ حَرِيصٌ عَلَيْكُمْ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ رَؤُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ. The Prophet is Rahim. One of those qualities is Izzah. To Allah belongs Izzah, dignity. وَلِلْ رَسُولِ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And to the messenger and to the believers as well, they share in this quality of having Islamic dignity. So the Imam alayhi salam wants to do what? What is he telling him? One of the things we can understand is that the Imam alayhi salam is telling him that what you see in me is something which is accessible to you as well. Of course, not on the same level. The Imam is is special. He's unique. He's ma'asum. But that level of that type of dignity that comes through iman and through being connected to Allah is something which is accessible to all the believers. Walil mu'minin, as the ayah says. He quotes from the Quran itself. Now, what is this Islamic dignity? What is this izzah? What is this karama? These two words are used interchangeably in the ahadith of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Karama and izzah. They both refer to this concept of a type of dignity of the soul, nobility of the soul. Something, when somebody has it, it transforms their entire being. It defines who they are. What is it, and how is it that we get, what are the effects of it, and how is it that we go about attaining this and getting it? And for those of us in this room who are in the position where we're training others, we're raising others, children, grandchildren, maybe if we're older brothers or sisters, then how do we raise children with this quality of Islamic dignity? These are very important questions and very key questions. If we understand them, it can completely transform the approach that we take to concepts like tarbiyah, how we raise other human beings. So these are deep questions. Inshallah, we'll see what we can cover in the time that we have today. And inshallah, if Allah gives us the opportunity, tomorrow as well. So one thing I want to say is that the concept of dignity is something which pretty much anybody who looks at human beings and tries to go into philosophy about who are human beings and how are they different from other creatures, pretty much everyone says that human beings have a special type of dignity. There's a famous document in history known as the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights that was written up in the year 1948. Historically, that was an important time. It was after World War II. When, after 2 world wars, the countries of the entire world realized that this approach is something that it's not very productive for us. It's not very useful for us to be just always in the state of war. Let's see if we can come to some common agreement on something when it comes to how we should treat one another. And we'll call that human rights, and let's see if we can come to some agreement. And in that declaration, at the very beginning, they start with the following. Whereas recognition of the inherent dignity and of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family in the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world, and so on and so forth. And they talk about the different human rights and values. Now, it's interesting that it took them some time to come to a document that everyone would agree on. And at the end of the day, of all the countries, I think there was more than 150 countries that went and signed this document, not a single country dissented. Not a single country said that we're not going to sign it. There was a few countries that said that, there's no country that denied it and said that we're going to oppose this. There was a few countries that just abstained from signing it, like Russia and USSR and USSR republics and Saudi Arabia for their own reasons. They said we're not going to sign it, but we're not going to, negate or oppose it. They all agreed on it. Why? Because this is a common understanding. We all know that human beings need to treat each other with some level of decency. We know that everyone has rights. Now, why they have those rights, this document doesn't go into it. It just says that human beings have dignity. Now, historically, it's very interesting that the Muslim countries, they knew that this document, even though, overall, it wasn't so bad. There was a lot of things in it that were good, and but they knew that there was something missing from it. So what they did is they said that let's come up with an Islamic Declaration of Human Rights. And then in 1981, I believe, a group of Muslim nations, including Saudi Arabia and Iraq and Kuwait and so on and so forth, and Iran, Islamic Republic of Iran, they drafted this other document, which is the Islamic Declaration of Human Rights. And in that, they went and they said that, what does Islam teach us about how we should treat one another? And one of the corrections that they made, or one of the additions they made, is when they talk about dignity, they talk about dignity coming from one's connection with God. They say that feel duty bound to remind man of the high status and dignity bestowed on him by God. Okay, now somebody might say that, well, what's the big deal, right? We know that we're dignified, right? You can be dignified whether you have God or you don't have God. Right? And this is where, when we start to ponder upon it, we see that actually there's a hugely important teaching here. There's like, this is like a very valuable piece of knowledge here. That in Islam teaches us that dignity is found by somebody's connection with Allah. In what way? Let's go to the Quran. Surah At-Teen, A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajeem, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Wat-Teeni Waz-Zaytun, Wa-Turi Sinin. Allah is taking an oath on some things which are very important. He wants to draw our attention to something very important that he wants to state. What are these things he swears upon? Apparently, he is referring to the fig and the olive. Right? Why? Because these are some of the wondrous creations of Allah. I don't think that human beings until now understand the benefits of some of these key things that Allah has created in the form of food. Only lately you see now people are coming back to this and they're saying, oh, the superfoods and the, like the prebiotic foods and whatnot. But still that exploration, just starting to understand what does it mean when these foods that Allah has actually signified, and how should they be taken and processed and whatnot. Those are things which are still being researched. Then Waturi Sinin, and by that mountain which is known as Turi Sinin or Turi Sayna, where Nabi Musa alayhi salam was spoken to by Allah, a very important holy place, forever changed the course of humanity. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. Indeed, we created human beings in the best of forms. Right? This is something where we have to just press the pause button for a second here and ponder. Let's do our tafakkur and our tadabbur. Let's think about this. That Allah Ta'ala has singled out your and my creation, and He is saying in His book that you have been created in an extremely special manner. Right? You're a human being. That gives you inherent dignity. You're not an animal, right? You are a human being. And that's something which is very powerful, that teaching. You see, for example, you have flies and then you have bees. You have flies and you have butterflies, right? Flies and butterflies, maybe in their structure and their skeletal makeup, they're very similar. But you see, where do flies tend to flock around? What type of things they tend to go to? And you compare, what is it that the butterfly goes to? One goes towards that which is low, that which is kind of smelly and whatnot. And the other one goes to that which is high, that which is sweet smelling, that which is attractive. Why? Because that's the way it is. That's its nature, right? It's not meant for, one of them is meant for that, one of them is meant for this. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. That is referred to as, in Islamic terminology, as karama al-dhatiyah, that dignity which is inherent to a human being. But there's another dignity which is known as al-karama al-iktisabiyah, meaning that dignity which one can earn. And the two are different. What Allah Ta'ala continues in Surah At-Teen, ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَاهُ أَسْفَلَ سَافِلِينَ. And then we sent him back to the lowest of the lowest. Why? Because when you take that, let's say, example of that butterfly and the fly, and you take that butterfly and the butterfly starts taking on the role of a fly, then it's worse than the fly. Because the fly is doing what it's supposed to do, but the butterfly was created for something else. Asfala, lower than the low. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ فَلَهُمْ أَجْرٌ غَيْرَ مَمْنُونٍ. So this is the key here, that there is a status that somebody can achieve which is in accordance with ahsani taqweem, which is in accordance with the way that they've been created. And that is the earned dignity that they have. And the path is amalus salih and iman. That's what Allah lays out. The faith and the good acts. That's what can take somebody to that acquired level of dignity. So let's go back to the story of Imam Hassan alayhi salam. He's saying that to this person who's seeing this quality in him, he senses that there's something like almost like a burning light, which is coming from within, and it's having an effect on everything that he does. Imam Hassan alayhi salam, when he's helping the beggars, when he's teaching people at the mosque, when he's dealing with his political opponents, when he is dealing with his family, when he's guiding the ummah, right? When he's negotiating that peace treaty, when he's dealing with the opposition from his own people and the betrayal, in all those times, he's reflecting this quality of dignity. And when that man senses that it's something which comes from within, the Imam alayhi salam tells him that this is a path which others can traverse as well. The path of acquired dignity. Now, let's take that and try to see how does that compare to the way that things work in the society that we live in. How do people achieve recognition? How is it that they feel a sense of worth and self-worth? Typically, right? A lot of times, people achieve their sense of self-worth on the basis of what other people think about them. They measure themselves based on the opinion of others. And this is something we commonly see. People tend to be obsessed with this. How do others perceive me? No, it'd be wonderful, right? If you think about it, it'd be wonderful if we could be in the presence of our Imam alayhi salam, and we were able to ask the Imam that, Imam, I want you to be frank with me. Tell me, what do you think about me? I don't know if you've ever gone through this thought experiment before. Try to do it maybe on the nights of Qadr, right? You can take a moment and you can ask yourself that, okay, this is the night of Qadr. I know for sure that the Imam of my time has his attention on me right now. So let me go through this thought experiment. If I were to sit in his presence, I would ask him what you think of me. What would he say? Right? And we know that the Imam alayhi salam would be measuring on the basis of value criteria which are real, right? He would tell me that, you are this, right? You have this level. These are your faults. These are where your weaknesses are. This is the level of your iman. And based on that, I would be eternally grateful. I would start working on it. And then he would tell me that, okay, this is where you can take, this is what you need to do, A, B, C, and there I go, right? I'm on a journey. Or inshallah, I'm already on a journey and then he's helping me, right? That's the role of the Imam. But a lot of times the way that it works when it comes to other people measuring us, whether it be on social media, whether it be, sometimes people are obsessed with, let's say, the opinion of their friends groups or whatnot, right? Or sometimes people are very obsessed even with the opinion of their own family members, right? They think everything is about like what my spouse thinks. And it's like, well, wait a minute, right? On what basis are they valuing who you are and what you think? Is it on the basis of, something which is beyond themselves, or is it based on their own personal selfish interests? What happens then is that somebody's self-worth can get compromised. They not only are not pursuing that path of acquired dignity, but they have even lost that inherent dignity which they should be having. And then they feel like they're nothing. They start to hate themselves. They contemplate doing terrible things, right? Life isn't worth living, etc. Why? Because they fundamentally lost track and lost sight of their inherent dignity in the sense that they're human beings and Allah created them with so much potential. So this is a very important concept. Now, there's a lot with this topic, and as I said, one of the most important things is that we need to understand, how is it that we can raise human beings with dignity, right? How can we give that to others? A lot of times you might find a Muslim young person who isn't proud about who they are, right? They're like, that's not something which, and it's like, well, why, right? You have access to some of the most incredible teachings. You have access to the most incredible role models. You have access to the latest and greatest revelation from God. And after all that, you still lack a sense of self-worth. What's wrong here? Part of it might be the approach that's being taken in order to, bring this person to the religion. And that's something that is very important for us to consider. But there's one point I want to mention here, brothers and sisters, is that those people who are born as Muslims, one of the reasons why they sometimes lack this sense of dignity is a very simple thing, but very destructive. And I want to mention it right now. They sometimes sense this thing in themselves that, you know what? I'm a human being, and human beings value themselves on being able to choose for themselves what they want. Right? Imagine, when you're young, like very young, and it comes time to like dress up, right? Your mother chooses for you what clothes you're gonna wear, right? Because you're very young, you're just a baby. But what happens as that child gets a little bit older and the parents are like, they choose the outfit for them, the child will say that, no, I'm gonna choose, right? And they're gonna go and they're gonna be like, I'm gonna wear this thing and I wanna wear this thing, right? And as they get older, that's one of their sources of pride, that they are the ones who picked that clothes and they're the ones who are choosing what to wear from their wardrobe. And some people have more sensitivity than others, but generally speaking, you can say that people pride themselves on the choices they make. Sometimes people who are born as Muslims, they get into this mind trap. And what they say is that, look, I never had the choice where I willingly made the choice of this particular path of religion that I'm on. And then what they go, the next step of their thinking is what? Is that, well, therefore, I'm going to look upon the path with a sense of like, this is something which is not so good. Why? Because I didn't choose it for myself. And their whole life, they're in a state of kind of like rebellion. They're like, oh, because it was chosen for me, therefore, I don't want it. And you see that type of behavior among children sometimes, right? They actually want that thing, but because their parents chose it from them, I don't want it, right? And sometimes that same type of thinking applies to adults as well too. And this is where, brothers and sisters, we need to stop and ponder and think about what is that source of that tughyan, that rebellion that was within us sometimes. Why is it that we're willing to throw away that thing which is most precious and the most valuable, that other people are hungry and seeking for, and when they find it, they feel that they've been found like just the greatest thing in their life? We're willing to throw it away just because of some things that happened in the past. And this is a challenge for us. And what better time than in the month of Ramadan to reflect upon this? What are the sources of my rebellion? Why do I prevent myself from embracing the beauty of what has been given me? I need to think about this. You look at Imam Hassan alayhi salam, this example of karama, and you say that, what else do I want? Right? This is the type of person I want to be. In hadith, we're told that the person who is kareem, the person who has dignity, that is the person who, just as an example, that's the person whose happiness comes from feeding others. Whereas the person who is undignified, their happiness comes from eating. Right? This is the type of qualities that we learn from the Ahlul Bayt. This is the hadith from the Ahlul Bayt. The one who is honorable, the one who has dignity, is the one who is worried about what? In another hadith, we see that the one who is honorable is the one who finds happiness in giving to others. Right? This is hadith from Amir al-Mu'mineen. This is the qualities that they teach us. And that's why we see, and I'll I know that we're getting close to the time for breaking our fast, so I'm not going to go past that, inshallah. But I'll end with the story of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, another story. There was once a beggar who comes to him, and this beggar is somebody who realizes that what he's doing is undignified. It's one of those, it's makruh to beg, right? But sometimes, people are just forced to do it. So they do it, but they don't do it. It's not like they're not the professional beggars who make it a lifetime occupation. They do it out of great reluctance and out of despair. This was one of those beggars. So when he comes to the Imam alayhi salam, he wants to make it be a little bit dignified. He wants to maintain whatever dignity that he can. So he goes to him, and rather than just saying, give me some money, he composes some poetry on the spot. In that poetry, he says, and I'm just paraphrasing, he says that there is nothing left with me that can be sold even for a dirham. I don't have anything that I can sell you. So just look at my state in order to determine how I am. All I have left is my dignity that I've preserved. That dignity I would not sell, but now I have been forced to compromise by begging of you, and I found you as my customer. That's what he says to Imam Hassan alayhi salam, but just in poetry. It's very beautiful. We don't have time to go into all of it. Imam Hassan alayhi salam tells his keeper of his finances, he tells, give him everything that we have. To the point where even that guy is like, he's like, if we give him, we're not gonna have anything for ourselves. Imam says, Allah's don't think badly of Allah. He's gonna take care of us. Give him everything that we have. So empties out everything. Here you go. And then Imam Hassan alayhi salam turns to him and he composes his own poetry. Right? What does he say? He says, you rushed to us, so the downpour of our charity came to you. It rained down, and if you had abandoned us, it wouldn't have rained. So take this little amount, but then he tells him this. He says, be as if you haven't sold that dignity which you had preserved, and act as if we never bought it. Meaning that you came to me and I knew that you were concerned about your dignity being compromised here, but I will not let you compromise your dignity. Because for me, that's more important than the money I'm giving you. I'll give you the money, but don't give away your dignity. This is the example we have from Imam Hassan alayhi salam. Inshallah, we can continue this discussion tomorrow. We've gathered here for the Majlis of Tarhim of Marhuma Taj Banu. Her grandson told me that she was a mother of 8 and she raised them on her own. She's a very strong person, very, mashallah, admirable, a very good example of the way a woman should be. This is what he was telling me. We ask Allah Ta'ala to convey the thawab of this majlis and this gathering to that lady. I'll mention just a few sentences of zikr and musibat that we're told, as we are getting ready to break our fast, we can feel that thirst on our tongues and we can sense that hunger in our stomachs. We're told that those children who are on the journey to Sham, that they dare not say a single word of complaint about their thirst. Why? Because the ends of the spears of the soldiers were waiting to strike them if they heard even a single complaint from their mouths. Ala la'natullahi ala al-qawmi al-zalimin wa say'alamu alladhina zalamu ayya munqalibin yanqalibun wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa alihi at-tahirin.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أشهد أن عليًا ولي الله. أشهد أن عليًا وأولاده المعصومين بالحق حجج الله صلواتك عليهم أجمعين. حي على الصلاة، حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح، حي على الفلاح، حي على خير العمل، حي على خير العمل. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. لا إله إلا الله. وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وآل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. الله
Brother Abbas, can you make sure there's connection, inshallah? Is that good? Connection? استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن عليا ولي الله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. أشهد أن عليا وأولاده المعصومين حجج الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. أستغفر الله وأسأله التوبة. أستغفر الله من جميع ما كره الله. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته يقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. حول الله يقوم وأقعد. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد.
أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد. أشهد أن عليا ولي الله. أشهد أن عليا وأولاده المعصومين حجج الله. حي على الصلاة، حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح، حي على الفلاح، حي على خير العمل، حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة، قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. أستغفر الله من جميع ما كره الله. أستغفر الله وأسأله التوبة الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. حول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآله